I moved to Houston last June. After a divorce and getting fired in Austin, I just needed a fresh start. I rented a small one-bedroom in an old apartment building on the third floor, not far from a cemetery. Not for the ambiance, just because it was cheap. The complex was quiet, mostly retirees and loners. My apartment, 308. Directly across the hall, 309. No one visible, no noise. Convenient. For the first couple of weeks, I barely saw anyone. It wasn't until about 2 weeks after I moved in that I saw the man from 309 for the first time. He was standing at his door with keys in hand, and as I stepped out to take the trash, he looked at me and gave a polite nod. And I almost dropped the bag. He looked exactly like my father. Same height, same hunched posture, the same gray streaks at the temples, and the face. I don't mean similar or reminded me of. It was his face. The problem is, my father is dead. 12 years dead. I saw him in the casket. I stood at his funeral. I held the urn with his ashes. But there he was, alive, keys in hand, in a faded blazer, just nodding at me like any polite neighbor. I froze. He noticed my reaction and squinted, like he was trying to remember something. Then nodded again, slightly deeper, and went into his apartment. I went back inside, locked the door, sat on the couch. Because this wasn't possible. That night, I spent hours going through old photos of my dad. Childhood, high school, his final years, it all matched. I even dug out an old voice recording of him. I sat there listening, comparing it to how the neighbor had looked at me. Same tone, same way of looking, but it couldn't be. I knew that, and still, I wasn't sure. The next morning, I woke up to footsteps in the hallway. I looked through the peephole. The man from 309 was standing at my door and staring directly into it. When you look through the peephole and see someone looking back, it triggers a very specific feeling. A fear that slowly crawls up your spine. I don't know how long we looked at each other like that. Me through the peephole, him just standing there, his face only inches from the door. He didn't move. He didn't blink. Just stood there. I couldn't take it. I jumped back, heart pounding like I was a kid caught stealing candy. I sat quietly on the floor, back against the wall, trying not to breathe too loud. A minute later, I crawled slowly back and peeked through the peephole again. He was gone. I didn't leave the apartment for hours until I was absolutely sure he wasn't there. I looked at the door to 309 like it was a landmine. There was a newspaper on his doormat, faded and old, and that wouldn't be so weird, except it was a local Austin paper. Dated April 2010. My father died in May 2010. I didn't touch the newspaper, just stared at it, turned around, and went back inside. I didn't sleep that night. Around 3 a.m., I heard the door to 309 creak open. Slowly. That high-pitched metallic whine of old hinges. And then, footsteps. Software. Careful. Like someone barefoot. Then, silence. I knew he was standing right outside my door. I knew he was waiting for me to look through the peephole again. I didn't. In the morning, I finally stepped out. There was a mark on my door. A fingerprint. Clear as day, like from a dusty hand. But the finger was too long. Not grotesque, just not quite human. That day I went downtown, found a cafe, got a coffee. Just sat there trying to convince myself I was losing my mind. And that's when I heard the voice. You always liked cappuccino, no sugar. I turned. He was sitting at the next table, looking right at me, smiling. I don't know how I didn't drop the cup. He sat there in the same faded blazer, hands folded on the table, face calm. Exactly how I remembered my father in his final years, except there was no warmth. Not in the eyes, not in the voice. Just knowledge. And silence. Excuse me, I said. You must have me confused with someone else. He tilted his head slightly. You were 3 when you broke the glass vase, remember? I stood up. I had never told anyone about that. Never. It was one of those childhood memories you remember with strange clarity but never mention. Because why would you? He went on. We told Mom it was the cat, even though we didn't have one anymore. My mouth went dry. I just left, didn't look back. I spent the whole day sitting in my car in a parking lot. I didn't know where to go. Call someone? Who? What would I even say? Hey, I think my dead father moved in across the hall and is trying to convince me he's still alive. That evening I returned home. Slowly, step by step up the stairs, listening carefully. The hallway was empty. Door 309, same dusty welcome mat. The newspaper was gone. I almost convinced myself it had all been a dream. Until I opened my apartment door and saw an old photograph lying on the floor. It was me, my dad, and our old dog, a picture that had never been digitized. It had always been in a family album stored at my mom's place. I never took it with me. And yet here it was, slightly torn, diagonally, as if someone tried to rip it, then changed their mind. On the back, handwritten, I missed us. That night, I woke up because someone was sitting on my bed. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, just breathe. And through the darkness, I heard, I'm not dead. I just moved closer. I couldn't move. Not my arms, not my legs. I was paralyzed, like something cold and heavy was pressing against my chest, pinning me to the bed. The only thing I could do was breathe and listen. He was sitting next to me. I knew it. I could feel the indentation on the mattress from his weight. I felt the presence, too close, too unnatural. I couldn't see him, but his voice echoed in my ears. I'm close. I've always been close. You just never looked before. Then a soft creak, like someone standing up from the bed. And then silence. I don't remember how long it took before I could move again. Maybe a few minutes, maybe an hour. When I finally turned on the light, there was no one there. But on the pillow next to mine was a note. An old yellowed sheet of paper, carefully written in neat handwriting. My father's handwriting. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to be near you. Let me. I didn't go to work the next day. I couldn't. I didn't even look in the mirror. Felt like someone else might already be watching from inside it. I called my mom. I asked carefully if she had any old photo albums, letters, things like that. She was surprised. Said the album with that photo had been in her storage closet for years. No one touched it. I asked her to send me a photo of the album. 5 minutes later, a photo came through. The album with a torn corner on the cover. I asked, there's a picture inside. Me, you, Dad, and our old dog. Is it still there? A pause, then, yeah, it's there, but it's torn. Diagonally. Do you have the other half? No. I thanked her and hung up. That night, I set up a camera, pointed it directly at the bed, left the nightlight on and waited in the kitchen. Didn't lie down. The morning footage showed everything. At 3:17 a.m., the camera turned on. I was already in bed, though I swore I wouldn't sleep. On screen, me tossing and turning, and next to me, a figure, sitting. Looked like my father, but the face was blurred, like it kept shifting. The figure slowly turned toward the camera and said, "You weren't supposed to move without me." When I heard that line on the recording, my throat tightened. It wasn't a threat. It sounded hurt. Like I'd betrayed someone I was supposed to take with me. Like I'd forgotten. I rewatched the footage again and again. The figure, it was him. His body, his movements. But the face kept trembling like old video with static, never quite in focus. I didn't remember falling asleep, and I definitely didn't remember anyone coming in. I ran into him the next day. He was standing by the elevator with a bag in hand, and he simply said, "You still have that old jacket. Brown with the gray lining, remember?" I said nothing. "You left it in the basement, the one you hid in during that thunderstorm. We sat there together. I sang to you. He said it so casually, like we'd seen each other yesterday. Like 12 years hadn't passed, like he hadn't died. Who are you? I asked. Really? He smirked. I'm the one you left behind, the one who wanted to go with you, but you chose not to ask. You're not my father. Number. Not anymore, but I learned how to be him, because you never looked at anyone else with that much trust. He stepped into the elevator, the door closed. That night, he didn't come. But the next morning, I noticed things in the apartment were slightly off. The door handle had new scratches. A photo on the fridge was tilted by a few degrees. The nightlight was facing a different direction. He'd been there, even if I didn't see him. I decided to leave, packed a bag, called a cab. While I waited, I stood in the hallway, staring at the door to 309. And then I noticed it was slightly open. For the first time. That door had never been ajar, not even an inch. The cab arrived, but I didn't get in. I took a step forward, then another, peeked inside. The apartment was empty, bare walls, no furniture, no lights, no rugs. Just an old armchair in the middle of the room, and on the wall, a giant photograph of me and my father. But I was an adult in the picture, exactly as I am now. I didn't remember that photo. I never took it. In it, I was sitting next to my father on a bench in some forest. The light was soft, almost warm. We were both smiling, too widely, too identically. I stepped inside. Apartment 309 was silence. Not emptiness. Silence. Like someone had just stepped out, or was sitting nearby holding their breath. I stood in the center of the room and then I heard his voice. Not loud, right beside my ear. You know I didn't leave. I just found where you kept me. I turned. No one there. But now on the wall next to the photograph was a mirror. Small, wooden frame. I didn't look into it, but I could feel the reflection. Waiting. I moved out the next day. Left for another city. Rented an apartment in a new building. No history. No old doors. And here's the strange part. He never came again. No voices, no footsteps, no more photos. But now, when I look in the mirror, sometimes I don't see my own eyes. My hands move a split second before I tell them to. Sometimes I speak and I feel like the words started before I meant them. He doesn't live in apartment 309 anymore. He lives in me. In the version I remembered. In the one I held onto for too long. I gave him shape. A face. A voice. I gave him a home. And now, when I wake up in the middle of the night and stare into the darkness, sometimes I hear him whisper, "Thank you for letting me in. Now you'll never be alone."